Have you ever wondered why, so often, what appears to be a simple pursuit for sex turns out to be something far more complex, almost mysterious? Why do some of his actions speak louder than words, revealing truths he's unaware he's even sharing? The truth is, what he does or says is only part of the story. It's what he doesn't say, what he silently signals either consciously or unconsciously, that holds the real key. Let me ask you a question straight away. Why do so many men seem to chase conquest, to constantly seek validation through sex? I'm not talking about biological desire, the pure lust driven by instincts. I mean something deeper, a silent quest for recognition, a craving for someone to say, "You are enough." Because, in essence, every man carries a story, an internal narrative that fuels this pursuit. Throughout childhood, from the moment he's a boy, this story begins to take shape. Maybe he was told he needed to prove himself, that his worth depended on his achievements, on how much he could conquer. That small boy playing in the playground, running and competing with others, was expressing a primal energy, a core archetype Carl Jung called the animus, the instinct to act, to defend, to dominate, a manifestation of masculine energy. But this energy doesn't emerge from nowhere. It's rooted in a deeper ancestral survival system long embedded in our collective psyche. Imagine that young boy again, playing freely in the park. He runs, he challenges, he tries to be faster, stronger, better than the others. It's just play, right? But beneath that play, there's a fundamental need, an instinctual drive to affirm his identity, to validate his worth. Simple, natural, instinctive, something hardwired in his brain and body, a blueprint created for survival, but also for defining who he is. And here's a crucial insight: that same impulse that made him want to win in childhood doesn't vanish when he becomes an adult. It simply manifests differently. It's an invisible thread woven through his actions, an unconscious drive to seek validation, respect, and acknowledgement from the world, and especially from the woman he desires. Now, reflect for a moment. Why do so many men, even in their adult years, constantly seek to prove their value? Because that validation acts like a mirror. They want to see themselves reflected as desirable, powerful, worth it. And when they succeed, whether it's in a conquest, a new relationship, or a fleeting encounter, they temporarily feel that validation. But what's often hidden beneath that surface is a more vulnerable truth, because what they truly seek is not merely physical pleasure. It's affirmation. It's recognition of their masculinity, their strength, their worth. And sex becomes the ultimate symbol, the modern trophy, the silent affirmation of "I am still a man." The conquest is a form of validation, a proof that they are desired, that they are enough. But the problem arises when this validation becomes an addiction, a cycle of chasing external proof to fill an internal void. Think about how many men, and perhaps you've experienced this, appear to pursue one woman after another, or seem to have a never-ending desire to be wanted. It's not always about love or genuine connection. Sometimes it's simply about establishing a sense of self, about affirming that they still matter in a world that's often silent about their vulnerabilities. Most often, this drive isn't obvious. It hides behind seemingly confident facades, casual flings, or superficial relationships. Because underneath it all, many men are fighting an internal battle, the battle for their own sense of adequacy. Their core identity has become intertwined with their ability to attract, conquer, and validate themselves through others. And that's a fragile thing. Now, I want you to think, have you ever felt that a man, after a period of intense closeness, suddenly disappears? Or maybe that he keeps coming back, only to leave again? Or perhaps you've sensed that his interest is fleeting, motivated by some internal restlessness never truly rooted in you, in a real connection. If so, what's really happening beneath that surface? It's often something hidden, something that resides deep within his subconscious, because much of his actions are driven by unseen script patterns rooted in childhood, cultural conditioning, and personal fears. These scripts often say without words that his value depends on his ability to win, to be desired, to be in control. Take a moment to reflect. What did that initial connection really mean for him? Was it about love, about sharing vulnerability? Or was it about proving to himself or others that he is still strong? And if he feels internally insecure, anxious, or rejected, he might seek external validation to compensate, perhaps through sex, casual encounters, or superficial validation of his masculinity. And here's an important realization: many men aren't fully conscious of this process. They operate on autopilot, guided by deep-seated needs they don't even recognize. The pursuit of validation becomes a silent game, one in which he silently tests whether he's still good enough, whether he's still desirable, and that's why sometimes you'll notice that after a passionate night, the man suddenly withdraws or seems detached. He's seeking reassurance, yet doesn't quite know how to ask for it explicitly. Instead, his behavior is a poetic, silent language, a subconscious signal that he requires some form of validation, some confirmation that he still holds value. If you've ever sensed that, you're starting to understand the invisible code operating beneath the surface, one that no one openly talks about, but that influences every moment they share. Because the real craving isn't just for physical pleasure. It's an internal hunger, the hunger for acknowledgement of his worth, of his masculinity. Now, pause for a second. Think about someone you've known, a partner, a friend, a man in your life who seemed to chase affirmation more than genuine love. Maybe it was through flattery, through constant validation, or through repeated pursuit. Because underneath all of that is a wish that somehow, deep down, he is enough, that he belongs, that he's valued for more than just his external appearance. But here's the truth that society often avoids talking about. Underneath that desire is a fragile, vulnerable core. A man who does not feel entirely secure within himself will constantly seek outside confirmation. His pursuit of sex, success, or conquest is a mirror and unconscious reflection of his internal struggle with worthiness. And you, as a woman, have a powerful opportunity. The more you understand these invisible scripts, the better you'll be able to see what's truly happening. Because what appears on the surface, casual flings, fleeting passions, often masks a deep, aching need for something even more profound, a sense of inner wholeness. Before I continue, I want to leave you with a question to ponder. Maybe you recognize parts of this story in someone you've known, or perhaps it's something you've struggled with yourself. Whatever it is, just acknowledge it, because understanding these invisible layers is the first step to transforming not only your relationships, but also how you see yourself. If what I'm sharing resonates with you, comment below, because your voice matters. This space is ours, and no insight is too small when it comes to understanding human nature. Also, remember to like, share, and subscribe, because this journey of truth and awareness is only just beginning. We'll explore the most subtle signals. In the next part, a deeper dive into the unconscious markers that reveal what's really beneath a man's desire. The signs that aren't obvious but are profoundly meaningful. Stay with me. The path to understanding starts here, and it's more transformative than you can imagine. Now that you've begun to understand the surface, their drive for validation, the unconscious quest for worth, let's take a closer look at the quiet signals, the invisible cues that reveal what's really happening inside a man's psyche. Because often, what's most significant isn't shouted out loud. It's whispered in gestures, hesitations, and unspoken patterns that we usually overlook. Imagine for a moment that the way a man moves, speaks, or even pauses in conversation is like a language, one that communicates messages hidden beneath his words. Because the most profound truths about a man's inner world are rarely loud. They're subtle, delicate, almost invisible. But if you learn to read these signs, you gain access to insights that can transform your relationships. Start by observing the energy he carries when you're together. Does he seem restless, fidgeting, or avoiding eye contact? Or perhaps he's overly intense, clingy, or overly distant. These are not random behaviors, they're expressions of internal states, of unresolved conflicts, and unmet needs. For example, a man who struggles with feelings of inadequacy may exhibit what psychologists call avoidance behaviors, shifting his gaze, avoiding deep eye contact, or changing the subject when conversations become emotionally intense. These reactions aren't just about being shy, they're signals of emotional discomfort. It's as if a part of him is trying to hide something, perhaps his own vulnerability, fear of rejection, or self-doubt. Let's go further. When a man seems to seek validation, often he might display certain unconscious patterns. He exaggerates his achievements, seeks to impress with stories, or quickly deflect vulnerability with humor. These are protective shells, armor, hiding the fragile core beneath. In these moments, his body language, such as crossing arms, stiffening posture, or nervous laughter, are clues that he's feeling exposed or uncertain, and sometimes, the most revealing signals aren't spoken at all, they're felt. You might notice that his energy shifts when you talk about deeper subjects. Maybe he perks up when discussing achievements, but becomes quiet, withdrawn, or uncomfortable when the conversation turns to feelings or personal insecurities. Because, in his subconscious, facing vulnerability threatens the fragile identity he's desperately trying to protect. Now, I invite you to consider what typically happens when he appears disconnected or distant after intimacy. Many women interpret this as rejection or disinterest. But what if it's something subtler? Sometimes, a man's retreat occurs because he's unconsciously lost in internal battles, feeling fear, shame, or insecurity, so instead of expressing these vulnerabilities directly, he withdraws. There's a powerful analogy here. Imagine a river that runs beneath the surface, hidden from view. On the surface, it seems calm or even aggressive, but beneath, there's a deep current that shapes everything above. That current is like the hidden emotional landscape of a man, his unresolved fears, his unmet needs, his sense of adequacy or inadequacy. Recognizing these signals takes patience, sensitivity, and a sense of curiosity. For example, when he pulls away, do you notice a pattern? Maybe he's more affectionate during the day but distant at night. Or perhaps he's especially reactive when certain topics come up: money, success, past relationships. These reactions are clues, a whisper of something deeper whispering beneath his words. Another subtle sign comes from his silence. When you ask him how he feels about something deeply emotional, does he shy away? Does he change the subject or answer with something superficial? That silence, that hesitance, signals discomfort again, perhaps fear of vulnerability or feeling unworthy. Usually, it's a defense mechanism, a way to avoid exposing his fragile core. Listen carefully also to the stories he tells about himself, about others, about life. Are they filled with bravado, boasting about achievements? Or do they sometimes contain contradictions, hints of doubt? Because unconscious contradictions are like cracks in a foundation, they reveal instability or unresolved inner conflicts. Now, consider his reactions in moments of emotional tension. When upset, does he shut down, retreat, or lash out? These responses are not just impulsive, they're windows into unresolved internal battles, perhaps childhood wounds, fears of rejection or shame. The way he handles discomfort reveals whether he feels worthy of love and acceptance, or if he's defending against deep-seated fears. Furthermore, his body language offers potent clues. Does he often avoid eye contact when he's talking about important issues? Do his gestures seem guarded or tense? Or perhaps he leans in with openness, but then suddenly pulls back. These oscillations signal in a conflict, a push-pull dynamic between wanting closeness and fearing exposure. Let me give a metaphor. Think of a tree that bears fruit. The visible part, the branches, the leaves, is what we see, his actions, words, and demeanor. But beneath the ground are hidden roots, complex and intertwined, representing his unconscious beliefs, fears, and unmet needs. The health of the entire tree depends on those roots. If they're weak or disturbed, the tree cannot stand tall or bear healthy fruit. In relationships, this unseen root system influences every move he makes. So, by paying attention to subtle cues, body language, reactions, pauses, we start to decode what's truly happening beneath the surface. Because often, it's not about what he says, but what he doesn't say, or how he reacts when pressed beyond surface-level conversation. And here's a crucial point: many men may not even be aware of these signals themselves. They live on autopilot, guided by years of conditioning, societal expectations, and internal wounds. Their subconscious scripts tell them that vulnerability is dangerous, that showing weakness is shameful. So, instead of opening up, they retreat into silence or masking behaviors, protective mechanisms built over years of emotional avoidance. This is where your awareness as a woman becomes a powerful tool. When you start recognizing these subtle signals, you're not just seeing behavior, you're interpreting the silent language of his unconscious. And through understanding, you gain the ability to approach the relationship more consciously, more compassionately. Before we move on, I want you to reflect. Have you ever noticed these subtle signs in someone you care about? Maybe a hesitation when talking about feelings, a shift in energy after intimacy, or nervous gestures when sensing vulnerability. Take a moment, because recognizing these cues is the first step toward a deeper emotional connection, one that transcends surface appearances. If you relate to this, comment below. Share your experiences, because understanding these hidden signals can liberate you from confusion and open the door to authentic intimacy. Remember, this isn't about judging. It's about seeing the invisible strings that drive human behavior, and if you're ready, in the next part, I'll reveal how these invisible signs inform your choices, how to interpret what's beneath the surface to create relationships rooted in true connection and understanding. But for now, take a deep breath. The journey into the depths of human nature continues here, and what you discover might change everything. Now that we've explored the hidden signals, the subtle, almost invisible cues that reveal a man's inner emotional world, let's talk about what this knowledge means for you. Because understanding these signs is only the beginning. The real transformation begins when you decide to see beyond the surface, to decode the silent language, and to reclaim your power in relationships. Imagine for a moment that love is like an intricate dance, a dance not only of bodies but of minds and souls. The most profound connections happen when both partners understand the unspoken, when they read each other's hidden cues and respond with compassion, awareness, and authenticity. That's where true intimacy resides, in the spaces between. Words in the pauses, in the silent signals that carry the deepest truths, and here's the truth you need to internalize: the most powerful relationships aren't built on surface-level attraction or fleeting passions, they are built on conscious understanding, emotional depth, and genuine vulnerability. When you learn to recognize the unspoken signs of internal struggle, insecurity, or longing within him, you gain the ability to approach with compassion instead of judgment, with clarity instead of confusion. Because, my dear friend, you are not here to fix him, nor to carry his emotional load. You are here to lead yourself into awareness, to create boundaries rooted in self-respect, and to foster relationships where both partners can grow and heal together. That begins when you realize that the silent struggles of the men you meet or love are not barriers, they are invitations. Invitations to what? To a new way of relating, to a deeper level of trust, to authentic love that isn't built on masks or superficial validation, but on shared vulnerability and conscious connection. The first step, perhaps the most profound, is giving yourself permission to see those invisible signals. When he hesitates, shifts, or withdraws unexpectedly, don't dismiss it as him being difficult or aloof. Instead, see it as his inner world trying to communicate an unspoken message waiting to be decoded. And what should you do with what you see? You can choose presence over reaction. Instead of pushing for answers or trying to fix him, simply hold space. Let him know it's safe to be vulnerable. When he shows signs of discomfort, respond with gentle curiosity. I notice you're quiet right now. Is something bothering you? Soft inquiries create an opening, a doorway for him to step into awareness himself. Think of it as planting seeds of trust, understanding, and emotional safety. The more you tune into these subtle signs, the more you empower him to trust. That vulnerability isn't weakness, but strength. Because real power lies in being courageous enough to face your internal truths and to accept the truths of another. And here's the ultimate secret: every time you respond with empathy, patience, and understanding to these invisible signals, you strengthen the emotional fabric of the relationship. You create a space where both of you can grow beyond superficial roles, beyond the masks of masculinity and femininity that society often imposes. Now, I want to challenge you. As you listen to this, ask yourself, are you truly seeing the signs? Or are you dismissing them? Are you listening compassionately to what he's revealing in silent moments? Or are you ignoring what your intuition is telling you? Because the gift of awareness doesn't just serve you, it transforms your entire relationship landscape. It allows you to choose partners who are self-aware, emotionally available, and committed to growth. It also teaches you to recognize your own worth, your boundaries, and your capacity for authentic love. And here's my message for you today: you have the power to change the dynamics of your relationships by understanding what is often hidden in plain sight. When you see beyond the surface, you step into a place of conscious choice. When you choose awareness over assumptions, you create space for genuine intimacy. Now, let's imagine for a moment the future where every relationship begins with clarity, with honest recognition of the unseen inner worlds, where vulnerability isn't feared but embraced, and where love is rooted in mutual understanding rather than superficial validation. That future is within your reach, but it starts today, right now. You see, love isn't a game of conquest or validation. It's an ongoing dance of souls willing to be seen, heard, and understood at their deepest level. The more you develop your awareness of these subtle signals, the more you reclaim your power to connect, to heal, and to choose partnerships that Honor your truth, and it's not just about him seeing you, it's about you seeing yourself. Recognizing your worth in the face of inconspicuous signals, your strength in your clarity, and your courage to demand a love that truly honors your soul. Remember what Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Today, this is your invitation to become conscious, to see what's hidden, to decode the silent language of the heart, and to choose relationships that reflect your higher self. So, I invite you, become a seeker of truth in yourself, in your partner, and in the unspoken. Trust your intuition. Cultivate awareness in every encounter, and know that your power lies in your capacity to see beyond illusions, beyond masks, towards something real, something transformative. If this message sparked something inside you, if it awakened a new perspective, share your thoughts below. Comment, question, or simply say, I am ready to see the truth, because your voice, your awareness, is the seed of transformation. Finally, I want to leave you with one last question. Are you willing to embrace the vulnerability required to see the unseen, the signals no one talks about, and thus create a love that's truly alive? Your journey toward conscious connection begins now. The power to choose, to understand, and to love authentically is in your hands. And the most beautiful part, every step forward is a step toward the love you truly deserve. Thank you for being here. If this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Because the more we wake up to these truths, the more conscious, meaningful, and real our connections become. And remember, the greatest love begins when we see each other clearly, inside and out.